In a desolate and remote suburb, the body of a man with a gunshot wound to the head and his hands tightly bound was discovered in a deep dirt pit. Clues at the scene led police to believe this was a premeditated murder. While the investigation was ongoing, a bizarre event shocked everyone. The deceased man suddenly came back to life, to the astonishment of the police. The man revealed a shocking secret. What was this secret? What really happened to this man? How could someone presumed dead return to life? Follow today's video to uncover the truth and decode the chilling secrets of this case. The story began at 5 p.m. on October 10th, when a group of police officers in Tampa, Florida, USA rushed to a remote area on the outskirts to investigate a case. This area was rarely visited, surrounded by dense trees and tall wild grass. With such isolated terrain, it was an ideal spot for criminals to carry out their sinister plans. After searching the scene, the police quickly discovered a deep pit about 3 meters in depth. Inside the pit was the motionless body of a man lying face down. The victim was found wearing only a pair of athletic shorts, with his hands bound tightly behind his back with rope. On the right temple, police identified a gunshot wound that pierced straight into the victim's head. The body bore no other injuries, suggesting that the perpetrator acted swiftly and professionally. The area surrounding the pit showed no signs of a struggle or scuffle, leading the police to believe the victim had likely been subdued before being brought there. Despite thorough searching, investigators were unable to find any identification documents or items that could help identify the victim. Who was the victim? Who killed him in such a remote location? With the evidence gathered at the scene, the police launched an intense investigation to uncover the truth. While detectives were deliberating the case, an unexpected phone call from a man named Luis turned everything around. In the call, Luis claimed he knew the victim's identity and even knew who the perpetrator was. Armed with this crucial information, the police immediately summoned Luis to the station for questioning. At the police station, Luis revealed that the victim was his friend, Carlos Rivera, and the perpetrator was none other than his wife, Sofia Hernandez. Luis recounted that while he was training and boxing with Carlos, Sofia had approached him and asked him to find a hitman to kill her husband for the price of $2,000. Since Carlos was a mentor whom Luis deeply respected, he decided to report the matter to the police. Luis also provided the police with critical evidence, including audio recordings and text messages documenting his conversations with Sofia about the plan to kill her husband. This evidence was compelling enough for the police to immediately issue an arrest warrant for Sofia. Once Sofia was arrested, the true motive behind her actions against Carlos came to light. Carlos Rivera, originally from Puerto Rico, had moved to Tampa as a child. At 17, he began his career as a professional boxer. However, his passion for the sport didn't last long, as he realized he was merely a money-making tool for others. As a result, he decided to leave and transition to working as a boxing coach. One day Carlos, dressed in designer clothes and wearing an expensive watch, walked into a bar to relax. There, he met Sofia, a tall and attractive woman whom patrons at the bar often referred to as Lulu. Lulu, 7 years younger than Carlos, was Mexican and living in the U.S. on a temporary visa. She made her living cleaning houses and working as a massage therapist. Their encounter began when Lulu casually offered Carlos a drink, and the two struck up an intimate conversation. Both had previously been divorced. Lulu had 2 children and Carlos had 3. They shared a mutual passion for fitness, and their shared pasts and interests convinced Carlos that Lulu was the love of his life. Not long after, they started dating, and the two became a couple. In 2010, Carlos and Lulu decided to marry and became legally husband and wife. By marrying Carlos, Lulu easily obtained a U.S. green card, allowing her to stay in the U.S. indefinitely without needing to return to Mexico to renew her visa. Carlos recalled that on his wedding day, Lulu's mother jokingly said to him, "From today onwards, Lulu will be your trouble." At the time, he thought it was just a joke, but Carlos had no idea it was actually a serious warning. After their marriage, Carlos and Lulu partnered to open a boxing gym, which not only fulfilled their passion, but also provided a stable income. In addition to his role as a boxing coach, Carlos worked at a shipping company, leaving him little time to manage the gym. As a result, he entrusted Lulu with all the management responsibilities. The way she ran the business impressed Carlos's friends and made him love and trust his wife even more. In Carlos's eyes, Lulu was the ideal wife, dedicated and reliable. Within 3 years, Carlos quickly built an enviable life, owning a luxurious 2-story house, a motorcycle, and an expensive car. Beyond that, he also helped Lulu's family by assisting her mother and 2 children in obtaining U.S. citizenship one by one. However, in the 4th year of their marriage, cracks in their relationship began to surface more clearly. Carlos noticed that Lulu was becoming increasingly extravagant, frequently buying designer clothes and handbags while neglecting her family and work. Whenever Carlos inquired about the gym's finances, Lulu would immediately react defensively and accuse him of meddling in her personal affairs. Instead of providing clear explanations to her husband, she often escalated the conversations into tense arguments. During this time, Carlos devoted himself to establishing a non-profit organization aimed at supporting troubled youth who had a criminal past. Initially, the organization received enthusiastic support from donors, and Carlos believed he was truly making a difference. However, Lulu not only refused to support him but secretly contacted the donors, spreading rumors that Carlos was embezzling the organization's funds. These rumors quickly spread, causing all funding sources to be cut off entirely. As a result, the organization faced insurmountable challenges and was ultimately forced to shut down. Not stopping there, Lulu began spreading more rumors to tarnish Carlos's reputation. She accused her husband of being an alcoholic and frequently using violence against her, leading those around them to develop a negative view of Carlos. As tensions escalated, Lulu decided to move her children to the 2nd floor of their home, separating herself from Carlos. By March 2015, Lulu proposed divorce to Carlos and demanded he transfer all his assets to her, including the house, vehicles, and savings. However, Carlos firmly refused, insisting that the assets must be divided fairly. Carlos's clear stance not only disappointed Lulu, but also made her feel angry and resentful. It was perhaps at this point that Lulu decided to plot Carlos's murder in order to claim all of his assets. Yet, during her police interrogation, Lulu adamantly denied all allegations related to the plot to kill her husband. She claimed that she had only asked Luis to find a thug to beat up Carlos and force him to sign the divorce papers and transfer all the assets to her. This statement created significant challenges for the police in convicting Lulu. Although the evidence pointed to Lulu's sinister plot, the lack of concrete proof made it difficult to prove that she had actually intended to hire a hitman to kill her husband. However, just as Lulu was about to be released, an unexpected event occurred. Carlos Rivera, the man everyone believed to be dead, suddenly walked into the interrogation room. Lulu screamed in fear, thinking that the figure before her was her husband's ghost. But how could someone presumed dead return to life? The truth quickly came to light when it was revealed that Carlos's death was merely a staged act orchestrated by him, Luis, and the Tampa police chief. Facing his wife directly, Carlos recounted the entire truth. Carlos explained that after learning of his wife's plan, his friend Luis had called to warn him. According to Luis, to gain Lulu's trust, he pretended to know a notorious hitman in the criminal underworld named Victor. Lulu completely trusted Luis and entrusted him with full authority to contact Victor to carry out the plot. However, Lulu had no idea that Victor was a fictional character cleverly created by Luis to trap her. Initially, Carlos thought this was just a harmless joke by Luis. However, when Luis detailed the entire conversation and negotiation process with Lulu, Carlos couldn't believe what was happening to him. Luis went on to explain his plan to save Carlos and expose Lulu's plot. He suggested that Carlos disguise himself as a hitman with the alias Victor. To do this, Carlos needed to buy a new phone to communicate with Lulu, luring her into revealing her intentions and gathering evidence against her. Carlos agreed to Luis's plan and began preparing, posing as a professional hitman negotiating a contract. Carlos started communicating with Lulu to plan the assassination of himself step by step. He drew Lulu into the trap, making her increasingly confident that her plan was flawless. Victor set clear conditions. He would only accept the contract if the price was reasonable and Lulu needed to make an upfront payment. Lulu agreed to pay $22,000 and throw in a pickup truck, hoping this would fully satisfy Victor and ensure he carried out the job. Meanwhile, Luis secretly wore a small recording device on his shirt and continued visiting the gym to speak with Lulu. During their conversations, Lulu constantly complained about her situation. She claimed that Carlos didn't give her a single penny and had frozen all her bank accounts, leaving her with only a small amount of cash. Lulu became even more determined to carry out her plan. While talking, she openly revealed that Carlos might finalize the divorce paperwork by February 22nd and emphasized that the hitman needed to act before then so she could claim all his assets. Luis tried to persuade Lulu to abandon her plan. He repeatedly told her that things hadn't gone too far and that she still had a chance to change her mind, but Lulu stubbornly refused to reconsider. She even expressed frustration with Luis's advice, insisting that this was the only way to achieve her goal. Lulu's stubbornness made Luis realize that she was completely consumed by greed and hatred. Later, she gave Luis $100, instructing him to use it to buy a gun for Victor to prepare for the assassination. Unbeknownst to her, Luis took the $100, along with all the evidence he had collected, including recordings and messages, to the police station to report the case. When he arrived, Luis detailed everything from Lulu's suspicious actions to the crucial evidence he had gathered. The Tampa police chief officially accepted all the evidence Luis provided. However, after a thorough review, the police chief concluded that the current evidence was still insufficient to convict Lulu. As a result, the police decided to execute a bold plan, staging Carlos's death to force Lulu to reveal her entire plot. Of course, this plan was only carried out after the police confirmed that Lulu had indeed hired someone to kill her husband. This was not an act of entrapment, but a strategy to collect direct evidence of Lulu's criminal intent. The police chief worked closely with Carlos and Luis to ensure the plan was executed safely and effectively. With the help of professional makeup artists, they created a realistic gunshot wound on Carlos's head. Carlos was then placed in a dirt pit, lying motionless with his eyes closed, perfectly mimicking the appearance of a deceased victim. An investigation team was even sent to the scene to examine, film, and photograph it as if it were a real crime scene. These staged photos would later be sent to Lulu as proof that the assassination had been carried out successfully. The situation became even more dramatic when, during the staged autopsy at the police station, investigators were shocked to see Carlos suddenly come back to life. To everyone's astonishment, Carlos cried, "This death is my key to freedom." It was then that investigators realized Carlos had faked his death as part of the plan. After completing his role, Carlos went into hiding at a safe location, leaving the rest of the operation to the police. A police officer disguised as Victor then brought the staged crime scene photos to Lulu. During their meeting, Victor informed Lulu that the mission was complete and demanded the remaining payment as agreed upon. Seeing the fake photos of her husband's lifeless body in the dirt pit, Lulu couldn't hide her joy. She laughed on the spot, clearly satisfied. She even asked the hitman to recount the details of how he killed her husband to ensure everything had been carried out. Once assured, Lulu handed over the remaining money to Victor. However, she was unaware that she had fallen into the elaborate trap set by Carlos and the police chief. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Lulu was finally forced to confess to all her crimes. In October 2016, the court sentenced Lulu to 20 years in prison for solicitation of murder. However, due to good behavior during her time in prison, Lulu's sentence was reduced, and she was released early in 2023 after serving only 7 years. This decision surprised and concerned many, including Carlos. Upon hearing that Lulu would be released, Carlos couldn't hide his worry about the possibility of her seeking revenge. As a result, he decided to leave his current residence and focus on building a new life. Later, he met Dr. Natalie, and they got married in 2024. Not only did Carlos find new love, but he also decided to share his life story through a book titled I Walked on My Own Grave. In the book, he detailed everything that happened, from the terrifying moment he discovered Lulu's murder plot to the journey of staging his death and escaping danger. He hoped his story would inspire those in difficult situations, reminding them that life always offers a way out for those who refuse to give up hope and faith in the future. Thank you for watching the video. If you found the content interesting and engaging, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our latest crime stories.